It's a long week, isn't it? It's only Tuesday. A lot to get through tonight. Let's bring in Sky News Political Editor Andrew Clennell. Andrew, those scenes in Sydney, they're not pro-Palestine rallies. They were pro-Hamas, anti-Israel, anti-Jew rallies. Shocking scenes. I think the government there is condemned. They've been caught flat-footed. I think particularly the police minister needs to reconsider her future. But I am surprised that given there was no permit granted for this rally, that the police allowed it to move from the Sydney Town Hall to a point where they knew, would have to have known, given the sails were lit up in the Israeli flag colours, that there would be a potential for confrontation. What happens now?
Well, I think it's just an opportunity missed. I mean, they're not lighting it up again. There doesn't seem to be much of a suggestion anyone will be arrested from the rally. I believe there's a rally on soon in Melbourne. I think
there is.
It's a bit of a fingers crossed situation at the moment in Australia. It's a bit like walking on eggshells, Peter, and you've got to hope the authorities are prepared and that they learn from last night as well.
Yeah, I might remind people at home, though, Hamas is a listed organisation. So if anyone turns up with a flag or signage or Arabic writing or anything identified with Hamas, that's an offence for which you could get arrested. I would presume we've got intelligence agencies trawling through attendees at these events and things that might have been said online. But surely there's got to be some fallout here for the New South Wales government, for the police minister, indeed for the senior command.
Oh, look, I think there is. I don't doubt there is. And there's state racial vilification laws in play as well. So the police could look at that. But from what I've heard, the police basically didn't say to Israelis, don't go, but they said to the Jewish Board of Deputies, there's risk in going. And then what option did the Jewish Board of Deputies have, except to say to their community, maybe you shouldn't go? So it is...
Well, hang on, they arrested that bloke. They arrested Mark Spiro.
Yeah, I'm aware of that.
They arrested him and they told him it was for his own safety.
It does appear a bit of a mess, and certainly not helped by Michael Daly's incompetence, which he showed. So it was almost like Chris Minns. I think he was off yesterday, but spent most of the day on the phone because of all this. And he really had to pull his ministers into line today. So he has to coordinate now with the police a better way, because that just simply wasn't good enough. It's like the bad guys win again.
I made the point about this commentary in some sections of the media about moral equivalency. We've seen it with the Greens. We saw it with Sonny Bill Williams trying to make a point on Twitter that the Hamas actions were akin to the freedom fighters in Ukraine. Peter Dutton addressed this at his press conference today. Have a listen.
Anybody who seeks to try and compare Israel to Hamas here, and somehow there's a moral equivalence, it's completely wrong thinking. What we're seeing here, as I said earlier, is not a rudimentary incursion across a border by an individual in a matter that's dealt with. This is a terrorist attack.
I think Penny Wong's been weak with her restraint response, which she backed in again yesterday. But two Labor frontbenchers, Chris Bowen and Tony Burke, both have quite significant Arab populations in their electorates. They've got radio silence out on this issue. Surely they should have to front and make very clear their position.
Well, they'll come under pressure to do so from the media story on it this afternoon. I've got no doubt about that. There'll be an opportunity in Parliament next week in relation to that, I guess. There's no question that Labor has a bit of an issue, or perceives a bit of an issue, in terms of offending the Palestinian community. And you saw it when Bob Carr was Foreign Minister, and some of it even relates to the fact that the Labor leadership ballot, the Labor left, are on the Palestinian side. But I just think anyone, even if they have sympathy for the treatment of Palestinians over decades, can't do anything but condemn what happened over the weekend. It's an open and shut case. They basically found women and children, and there was rape, torture and killing of innocents who didn't have weapons. I mean, doesn't matter what the cause is. There's no justification for it. It's just plain outright murder. So, yeah, I mean, it's a no-brainer to condemn it. And anyone who fears it because of some political backlash, well, that's not particularly courageous, to say the least.
No, the longer it goes on, the longer they have that silence there, the more they stand condemned. Let's go to The Voice. We can't forget, of course, the vote is on Saturday. Polling out from the No campaign. This is Resolve polling group polling. Shows that the most convincing argument, the one that's turning Australians against The Voice, is that they don't want to divide the country. Now, one of the big No campaign financiers, Simon Fennick, he's made the point that corporate Australia have gone too far in backing this financial political campaign. This is not the job of corporate Australia. We'll get to some of the polling you revealed yesterday. I think that's really important as well. But where does the PM stand here on Sunday morning if these polls are accurate, if it's a thumping defeat of his voice? What happens next?
Well, I think Australians will be looking at how he reacts, because I expect a roughly 60-40 result for no. So he can't blame the electorate. He shouldn't blame the media, as he appeared to do on Insiders on the weekend, suggesting that. I mean, in a way, you can have a bit of a lash at Peta Dutton, but you've got to almost blame yourself, don't you, for not doing more to get it over the line, or to get it closer.
Well, basically, otherwise you're saying that Australians are stupid or they're racist.
Yeah. So, yeah, I would suggest that they've been working for several weeks on a strategy of what he should say, Peter. Wouldn't you agree?
I reckon you're right. Whether it cuts the mustard with the Australian electorate, now they've had a good look at this bloke and realise that he's just patently not across the detail. I just want to pick up that point about National Security Committee. I am surprised. I thought Peta Dutton might have been out in a limb today, that there might have then been quick confirmation for the Prime Minister's office that in fact they have had an NSC meeting. I am surprised that they haven't had one. I'll say they haven't had one because he says he will not comment. That tells me that he probably hasn't had the meeting. You can do this stuff remotely now. There's lots of secure ways they could have had a hookup, particularly given the impact we're worried about here in Australia with the Jewish community. Are you surprised, Andrew?
Yeah, I mean, I reported this yesterday. There hadn't been a meeting yet, and I was surprised. So, definitely. I mean, look, you can sort of achieve the same things, but the consensus amongst people who've done these jobs before is it's better to have all the officials, all the key ministers in a room, and you can make sure, as the Prime Minister, that everyone's doing everything they should when it comes to the security of Jewish sites, Jewish schools, what to do in the event of a protest or in the event of violence. Are the agencies doing their work? Is the cooperation on with state governments to make sure police are prepared for any sort of horrific attack that comes out of this? We just have to hope it's all happening outside the province of an NSC meeting, I guess.
Hey, just quickly, I forgot to mention that polling, we referenced it, but 22 only out of 151 federal seats on the tracking, we're told will vote yes. That's a walloping for the Prime Minister's Voice campaign. How accurate do you reckon that poll is?
Well, we'll find out Saturday night, but it is based on methodology which was very successful and accurate that the Australian and YouGov used for the 2022 election. They came up within a couple of seats of the result. And I remember Scott Morrison kind of poo-pooing it then. It's a different firm, it's Focal Data, but they've done the same thing. They've done a large nationwide survey. That's come in at 61.39, which is similar to the news poll. And then they've used the demographics for that lots of data from the respondents to come up with the seat by seat. That's exactly what YouGov and the Australian did. And to me, a lot of these results simply make sense. I think I had a Nationals MP who suggests that it might be 5% out in their seat, for example, and there'd definitely be a 7. A no with 70 in front of it on Saturday night. Seats like Grainler and Kingsford Smith and Melbourne, and these are inner city seats, Clark, that are on there as yes, makes sense. Everywhere else going no, when you look at the national result, also makes sense. But if this is borne out on Saturday night, it is very devastating. And the only comfort that Anthony Albanese can take is at this point the news poll nationally ain't going with it. It does seem like voters will vote no, but will forgive Anthony Albanese for taking a proposition they didn't like at the moment. The problem with these things, as you know, Peter, is they can hang around in the background if something misfires in your government in the next year and a half, and then it piles on top in terms of a judgment issue.
And depends how he handles any loss and how quickly he gets back on to what they regard as core business.
Yes.
Andrew, thank you. I'll
Has
see
to
you
be gracious.
on Saturday night here at Sky News from 5 o'clock.